Live inside the Quest airlock, 1 month shy of its 20th anniversary of use on the International Space Station. On the right side of your screen is Pesquet. He once again is playing the role of EV1, or extravehicular crew member number 1, wearing the suit bearing the red stripes today. On the left is NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough. He'll be wearing the unmarked suit as EV2, or extravehicular crew member number 2. These two astronauts, members of the Expedition 65 crew, are about to make their 5th spacewalk together. The first 2 spacewalks that they conducted were back in 2017. This is their 3rd spacewalk in this series to install the new ISS solar arrays. This is the 241st spacewalk in the history of the International Space Station for assembly, maintenance, and upgrades. The 9th spacewalk out of the International Space Station this year. The 9th in Kimbrough's career, with a total of 52 hours and 43 minutes of spacewalking time to date. For Pesquet, this will be his 5th spacewalk, his 4 previous excursions in the vacuum of space totaling 26 hours and 15 minutes. The 2 astronauts have been suited up for the past couple of hours. They have been pre-breathing pure oxygen to cleanse the nitrogen out of their bloodstreams, preventing any condition known as the bends or decompression sickness from occurring when they step out into the vacuum of space. Most recently, they've been conducting what is called lightweight in-suit exercise protocols to slightly elevate their metabolic rate and hasten the dispersion of nitrogen out of their bloodstreams. They are all set to go, and in fact, you can see Kimbrough on the left being assisted by NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei and Megan MacArthur in the foreground as they prepare to install SAFER units, or Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue units. Those are the jet-powered backpacks that each spacewalker wears all the time to help them propel themselves back to the safety of ISS structure in the highly unlikely event they would become untethered during the course of their spacewalks. The first 2 spacewalks in this series, conducted on June 16th and again last Sunday on June 20th on Father's Day, were designed to install the first of these 2 ISS rollout solar arrays. You can see in this replay the first of those arrays for the 2B power channel on the Port 6, or far port truss of the International Space Station, being unfurled after it was finally installed with a little bit of elbow grease to the mounting bracket, a mod kit as it is called, at the base of the mast canister on the Port 6 truss on the far left side of the International Space Station. These arrays are innovative new solar array designs that use high-strain one-piece carbon fiber composite material. The stored strain energy of the booms provides the deployment capability, and once they're deployed, the booms provide the array's structural stiffness and their strength. There's a series of bolts and restraints that have to be undone by the crew members during the course of the installation process to first tightly install the arrays onto that mounting bracket and then eventually deploy them. In the foreground right now is Space Station Commander Aki Hoshide from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency as he watches over Vande Hei and MacArthur prepare Pesquet and Kimbrough for their activities outside of the International Space Station today. The objectives today is to remove the second IROSA, or ISS rollout solar array, from its flight support equipment and translate it, move it. Pesquet will be hauling it at the end of the station's robotic arm that will be driven by Megan MacArthur over to the Port 6 truss mast canister and install it on a mod kit, as was the case during the first 2 spacewalks by Pesquet and Kimbrough. They will then prepare for the installation of that solar array on the mast canister and complete its installation and deploy it, unfurl it on the mast canister to complete the second of the series of ISS solar array installations. There will be 4 more solar arrays flown to the International Space Station in pairs, 2 additional pairs to be flown on SpaceX Cargo Dragon missions in the future. The next pair will be installed for the 4A and 3A power channels on the port 4 and starboard 4 truss of the International Space Station. The final set or final pair of arrays will be for the 3B and 1A power channels on the starboard 6 and starboard 4 solar arrays to complete the power augmentation for the International Space Station. These are not designed to replace what are called the legacy or the older solar arrays on the station, but rather to augment their power capability for the future delivery of science payloads and new modules to be launched to the International Space Station.
Okay, and now it's time for
these new solar arrays also have future application for future space exploration objectives for NASA. The new Gateway program is an outpost that will be launched to orbit the moon, providing vital support for a long-term human return to the lunar surface, as well as serving as a staging point for deep space exploration, a critical component of the Artemis program to return humans to the moon by 2024 and beyond. You can see a comparative graphic here that shows the heritage or legacy solar array wings that currently exist on the International Space Station and their dimension. The new IROSA or ISS rollout solar array wings, a derivative of that on the far right for PPE or the power and propulsion element for the Gateway program, will be a solar array that is wider, about the same length, but a heavier in mass solar array that will provide power for the Gateway elements. Each of these power and propulsion elements will have 2 rollout solar arrays available. Each of these new solar arrays for the Gateway program will produce about 60 kilowatts of power. The Gateway elements will use this power to move around the moon while performing lunar exploration support capability. Here in Mission Control, the Orbit 1 team of flight controllers has been working in the deep overnight hours, overseeing the preparation for today's spacewalk by Pesquet and Kimbrough. The EVA officer at the moment on console, Sandy Fletcher, has reported back to Flight Director Emily Nelson that we expect to begin the depressurization of the crew lock section of the 2-compartment Quest airlock at about 6:17 a.m. Central Time. That would put us right on the money, right on the clock, to begin today's spacewalk in the neighborhood of about 7 a.m. Central Time, a spacewalk expected to last 6.5 or so hours in duration to complete the installation of the second of the 2 ISS rollout solar arrays.
Make sure you go at the in the timeline right now for us to keep pressing into safer dawning.
A-Firm, you have a go to continue, and one more bit of good news for you. I wanted to let you know that the 4 Bravo BGA is latched at this time.
Woohoo, that's great news. Thanks for sharing that with us. Go to continue.
As has been the case for the previous spacewalks, we'll be sharing views from helmet cameras that the 2 spacewalkers will be wearing throughout the course of today's excursion. Thomas Pesquet's helmet camera will have the number 20 in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Kimbrough's helmet camera will bear the number 22. And they are both equipped with high-definition cameras on their helmets as well to provide up-close and personal views of the work that they'll be doing outside of the International Space Station. A short time from now, there'll be a handover of flight control teams here in Mission Control. The Orbit 2 team, the Execute team, will be on console for the spacewalk itself once it gets underway. You can see the roster of personnel for today's activities. The flight director who will be overseeing the spacewalk itself is Pooja Jasrani. She will be accompanied by what is called the Ground IV Capcom or Spacewalk Communicator, Jenny Sidey of the Canadian Space Agency. She's an astronaut for the Canadian Space Agency. She'll be joined on console by veteran spacewalker and veteran astronaut Drew Feustel as well. Megan MacArthur, who is assisting Mark Vande Hei in the suit-up activities for Pesquet and Kimbrough. MacArthur will make her way to the robotics workstation inside the International Space Station and will drive the Canadarm2 robotic arm with Pesquet at the end of the arm to maneuver him into position as he hauls the second solar array over to the work site on the far port truss of the International Space Station, the P6 truss. This truss segment, this array, is being installed for the 4B power channel on literally the opposite side of the work site where the 2B array was installed and unfurled this past Sunday. This is Mission Control Houston. Thomas Pesquet, now equipped with his jet-powered backpack, again called a Safer unit. The acronym for Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue has been moved into the outer compartment of the Quest airlock, the crew lock section. The innermost compartment, known as the equipment lock, populated there by Aki Hoshide and Megan MacArthur, about to affix the second of the safer units to the extravehicular mobility unit, or spacesuit, for Shane Kimbrough. All of this activity is the backdrop for another busy week aboard the International Space Station. This coming Tuesday, the Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo craft, the SS Katherine Johnson, will be unberthed from the Earth-facing port of the Unity module of the International Space Station and maneuvered into position for a ground-controlled robotic release. That all taking place on Tuesday morning, June 29th. Our NASA TV coverage of that activity will begin at 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern Time, for an expected release time of 11:25 a.m. Central, 12:25 p.m. Eastern Time. That will take place just 7 hours before the Russians launch the next unpiloted ISS Progress resupply vehicle, the ISS Progress 78, from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan aboard a Soyuz 2.1A booster. The Progress loaded with almost 2 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the International Space Station, to be launched at 6:27 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time, 4:27 a.m. Baikonur Time on June 30th. Our coverage of the Progress 78 launch out of Baikonur, anchored here at the Johnson Space Center, will begin that evening at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The Progress to arrive at the International Space Station for a docking on the evening of July 1st, and we'll be providing live coverage of that as well. As we watch Megan MacArthur assist in the installation of the Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue unit on the back of Shane Kimbrough's suit, assisted by NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei, a reminder that we're taking your questions at hashtag AskNASA throughout the course of today's spacewalk, so that we can explain some of the intricacies of this excursion by Pesquet and Kimbrough and related topics associated with human spaceflight. A couple of questions while we have a moment here right off the bat. Many people are asking why the new solar arrays are not symmetrical. In other words, why are they a bit smaller than the legacy or existing solar arrays on the station? The answer is that we're not replacing the old solar arrays, we're simply augmenting their power capability. So the new arrays are only shadowing a portion of the older arrays, so they can provide an additional 20 kilowatts of power to the electrical output currently being generated by the older arrays. There are 8 power channels on the International Space Station. Only 6 solar arrays are being installed in these first 2 and then 2 additional pairs for a total of 6 to accommodate 6 out of the 8 power channels. The selected power channels for the new arrays were chosen because of the high loads and the high demand for power that they generate for particular systems on the International Space Station. On Twitter, Kyle is asking how many solar arrays are there? There are 8 in all. How long are they? Well, we explained in a graphic a short time ago that the older solar arrays, known as the legacy arrays, are about 115 feet long by 38 feet wide. At the beginning of their lifetime, they each generated about 32 kilowatts apiece. On the Earth, they have a mass of 2,400 pounds apiece. The first pair of solar arrays were delivered on the STS-97 mission for the Port 6 Trust, the same place where these first 2 new solar arrays, the rollout solar arrays, are being installed for power augmentation. These IROSA or ISS rollout solar arrays are about 63 feet long by 20 feet wide. They have a mass of 750 pounds apiece, and again will generate about 20 additional kilowatts of power at the beginning of their lifetime. For viewers on NASA television, our spacewalk coverage that's underway, now that Shane Kimbrough has also been moved into the crew lock section of the Quest airlock, we are running our spacewalk coverage uninterrupted on the public channel of NASA television. The media channel at the moment is being used and being held in abeyance for possible coverage coming up in the next hour of a sounding rocket launch out of the Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. Once that's completed, The spacewalk coverage will also air on the media channel, but for now, the spacewalk activities leading up to an expected start of the spacewalk about an hour from now is on the public channel only. This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, you're looking live inside the Quest airlock of the International Space Station. Shane Kimbrough and Thomas Pesquet are inside the crew lock section. Mark Vande Hei is also in there, helping to position the two spacewalkers for today's excursion outside of Quest to install, unfold, and unfurl the second of the two ISS rollout solar arrays. This one for the 4B power channel on the port 6 truss of the complex. The first of the two arrays installed and unfolded and unfurled this past Sunday for the 2B power channel, as the power augmentation of the station is well underway now. This the second of 6 planned ISS rollout solar arrays to be installed to increase the power capability of the International Space Station. A short time from now, the hatch between the two sections of Quest will be closed to isolate the spacewalkers in the crew lock. They then will begin the depressurization of the crew lock down to vacuum in a two-step fashion. First from 14.2 pounds per square inch of pressure down to 5 pounds of pressure per square inch. We'll take a pause to do systems and communications checks and leak checks on the two spacewalkers' suits before the depressurization continues down to vacuum. That then will be followed by final communications checks and the opening of the hatch to the Quest airlock. The official start of today's spacewalk, as it always is, will be measured at the time that the crew places their suits on battery power. This is Mission Control Houston. Mark Vande Hei now has closed and latched the hatch, separating the equipment lock section that he and Megan MacArthur are in.
Round 1, we are complete with steps 72 and 73.
Good morning, Megan and crew. Great to hear it. We copy, and we'll start putting the comm config into work, so the crew should have a heads up that there'll be hot mics shortly on Space to Ground 1.
Okay, Drew, we copy that. Great to hear your voice. Welcome to the Orbit 2 team, and many thanks to the Orbit 1 team for getting us ready.
They're still working their way out of the room, but they appreciate that.
The Orbit 2 team of flight controllers beginning a handover here in the flight control room here in Mission Control. The voice you just heard was that of veteran astronaut and spacewalker Drew Feustel. He will be the Capcom or spacecraft communicator talking to Megan MacArthur and Mark Vande Hei and the two spacewalkers who are now on the other side of the hatch in the crew lock section of Quest up through the time that the depressurization of the crew lock section of Quest is complete. Then communications chores will be handed over to Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jenny Sidey, who will be the voice and the choreographer talking the two spacewalkers through their procedures throughout the course of today's spacewalk. This is Mission Control Houston. As you can see, we are watching the activities in the Quest airlock of the International Space Station. Mark Vande Hei on the right. On the left is Megan MacArthur. They have completed the preparations for Shane Kimbrough and Thomas Pesquet to begin the 241st spacewalk in support of space station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades. Today's activities, the third in the series over the past 9 days, to install today the second in the series of ISS rollout solar arrays. This one also on the P6 or Port 6 truss of the International Space Station. This one for the 4B power channel on the opposite side, to which the 2B channel ISS solar array was installed and unfurled this past Sunday. The two spacewalkers are suited up. They have pre-breathed pure oxygen to cleanse the nitrogen out of their bloodstreams. They've been moved inside the crew lock section of Quest. The hatch, of course, now closed as we stand by for the start of the depressurization of the crew lock about 6.5 minutes from now, taking the crew lock down to vacuum as the precursor to the opening of the outer thermal cover and the outer hatch to Quest, and the initiation of battery power on the two spacesuits for Kimbrough and Pesquet that will start the clock running and the official start of today's excursion. This is the 9th spacewalk for Shane Kimbrough, the 5th for Thomas Pesquet, and the 9th to be conducted out of the International Space Station this year.
Station Houston, Space to Ground 1, just a heads up for the crew. You guys are now hot mic. Good morning, Taman, Shane. Looking forward to seeing you guys outside today.
Hey, good morning, Drew. It's good to hear your voice. And they're not out yet, but we heard they're out the door. Congrats on the Orbit 1 team for getting us ready.
We'll pass that along.
Thanks.
Shane, on the UIA, you can check the depress pump power is off, and the depress pump enable LED is on.
Depress pump power is off. Enable LED is on.
And Houston, we are standing by for your go for the crew lock depress cue card.
Copy. Stand by. We need to get a go around the room, and then we'll be back with you shortly. And Houston, or station, just a heads up, we're showing still about 5 minutes for the go for depress anyways with the timer, so we'll be standing by for that as well.
Megan MacArthur on the left side of your screen was one of the crew members launched to the International Space Station on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket aboard the Crew Dragon Endeavour back in April. just 2 weeks after Mark Vande Hei, who's on the right side of your screen, launched to the station with Oleg Novitsky and Pyotr Dubrov on the Soyuz MS-17 spacecraft. Here's a picture of the entire Expedition 65 crew. From left to right is Dubrov, Shane Kimbrough, Megan MacArthur, Thomas Pesquet, Aki Hoshide, who's the current commander of the complex, Oleg Novitsky, and Mark Vande Hei. Dubrov and Novitsky will be quite busy during the month of July with the impending launch of the new Nyoka multipurpose laboratory module in the offing on July 15th from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan atop a Khrunichev Proton rocket. It will take 8 days in transit for an automated docking to the Earth-facing port of the Russian segment of the International Space Station currently occupied by the Pirs docking compartment, which has been a docking port and spacewalking airlock for Russian-based spacewalks for the past 20 years. Pirs has now been deactivated and will be undocked via a unpiloted ISS Progress 77 cargo ship that is currently docked to Pirs. The undocking of ISS Progress 77 and Pirs scheduled for July 17th, 2 days after the multipurpose laboratory module is launched out of Baikonur. The Progress will use its engines to deorbit and dispose of itself and Pirs to a fiery demise in the Pacific Ocean. Pirs' lifetime aboard the station has come to an end and is being replaced by the huge multipurpose laboratory module that will serve as a science platform as well as a venue for a European robotic arm and an airlock from which spacewalks can be staged in the future. And we're standing by just moments from now for a go for the depressurization of the crew lock.
Give me lights on. What? I'm gonna put my lights on. It's good for now. At some point, I'll move forward to open the hatch, but for now it's okay. Okay.
Station Houston, Space to Ground 1, you have a go to start on the crew lock depress cue card at this time.
Copy, Drew. That's in work. All right, Shane, on the UIA, switch the depress pump power to on.
Depress pump power is on.
Okay, wait 10 seconds for complete startup.
Okay, 10 seconds.
Depress pump manual isolation valve to open.
Okay, depress pump man ISO is open.
Both of you monitor your suit pressure gauge. It stays below 5.5.
Copy. Copy.
And the depressurization of the crew lock is now underway. Once again, this will be in a two-step fashion. First, taking the pressure inside the crew lock or outermost section of Quest down to 5 psi. We'll pause for leak checks by the two spacewalkers of their extravehicular mobility units before the depressurization resumes down to vacuum. Once again, answering your questions on the hashtag AskNASA. Maggie on Twitter asking, do astronauts always go out on an EVA or spacewalk in a pair? Do they ever go out by themselves? The answer, they're always in a pair. Only one time in human spaceflight history did 3 astronauts go out on a spacewalk. That was on the maiden launch of the shuttle Endeavour on the STS-49 mission in which Rick Heeb, Tom Akers, and Pierre Thuot went out to perform a manual grab of the Intelsat satellite that encountered a problem with its retrieval for repairs. But typically, astronauts will conduct spacewalks in pairs because of the volume of work that's required and because of the necessity for safety reasons to make sure that a so-called buddy system is in work to allow the two spacewalkers to have another crew member out there with them to assist in the unlikely event a problem would occur.
P 5 and stable. Same for me. Yellow P at 9.0, should P is 5 and stable.
Copy. Thomas and Shane, we've got about 1 psi to get to this, but when the crew lock is at 6.0, both of you can expect an alert tone.
Copy, Mark. Copy.
And Shane, we're waiting for the next action until we get to 5.0 psi.
Mark Vande Hei keeping the two spacewalkers on the other side of the hatch up to speed as the depressurization continues down to 5 psi in the crew lock. And again, at that point, we'll pause to permit systems checks, leak checks of the two spacewalkers' suits to take place before resuming the depressurization of the crew lock down to vacuum. Here in the flight control room at Mission Control in Houston, the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers has now taken their positions on console to execute today's spacewalk. Today's team is led by Flight Director Pooja Jesrani at the bottom of your screen. To her right in the white jacket is the ground IV or spacewalk communicator Jenny Sidey, Canadian Space Agency astronaut. She'll be talking directly to the spacewalkers during the course of their excursion outside of the International Space Station. And to her right is veteran astronaut and spacewalker Drew Feustel, who is guiding the spacewalkers through this portion of the pre-spacewalk preparations. He will also be communicating when required to Megan MacArthur and Mark Vande Hei inside the International Space Station, while Thomas Pesquet and Shane Kimbrough are conducting their work outside.
Hold for a few seconds. Follow the displayed instructions and let me know when you have leak check complete.
Copy, Mark, can work. Copy.
And on console in the back row here in Mission Control is the lead spacewalk officer, Keith Johnson, veteran spacewalk officer who has presided over all of the spacewalks associated with the ISS solar array activity, these rollout solar arrays and all of the procedures associated with this activity. He will be talking to his backroom engineers as they work their way through the procedures checklists, and when required, make amendments to the timeline through Flight Director Pooja Jesrani.
Check complete for V1. Complete EVQ.
Copy. Leak check complete, EV1 and EV2. Both of you confirm your O2 actuators are EVA.
Forward. All right, EVA. I'm an EVA for EV2.
Copy. EVA for EV2. Shane, switch the depress pump manual isolation valve to open and expect an alert tone.
And ISO is open.
The emergency MPV is now open, and on your DCMs, monitor the suit pressure gauge stays less than 5.5. Our next trigger will be when you get to 2.0 PSI.
10 mark. Copy.
We're in a brief handover between satellites on our tracking and data relay satellite system, about to regain our downlink video from the station, and there it is. The depressurization of the crew lock section of Quest has resumed after a brief pause. Good leak checks on the crew's spacesuits. Everything in order for the start of today's spacewalk coming up in just a few minutes.
P5 and stable EV1.
Copy.
P5 for EV2.
Once again, if you're just joining us on NASA television and on the web, we are moments away from the start of the third spacewalk in the past 9 days by Shane Kimbrough and Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency. Today's spacewalk to remove from flight support equipment the second of the two ISS rollout solar arrays, brand new solar arrays, designed to augment the power capability of the International Space Station. This particular array to be moved over to the far port truss, the P6 truss, on the left side of the International Space Station, to be installed on a mounting bracket and then unfolded and unfurled for the 4B power channel, joining a similar array that was installed this past Sunday and unfolded for the 2B power channel. That array is up and running and generating great electrical capability.
On 2, Timo. 2.0 right now.
I copied your reading 2.0. All right, with the reading of 2.0, Shane, you can switch the depressed pump manual isolation valve to closed.
All right, so it's closed.
On the UIA, Shane, switch the depressed pump power to off.
Depressed pump power is off.
Copy off. Go ahead and report your initial tether configuration for egress.
All right. I'll start from my left steering extender. I have my red hook closed and locked, black on black. Goes to my red reel, which is unlocked. The yellow hook goes to my medium workstation. On my red reel, I have Shane's yellow hook closed, locked, black on black. Goes to his red reel that I see unlocked, and Shane, you can pick it up from there because I don't really see it after that. I have my right waist tether on the airlock waist tether, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4 hooks are locked. That's good config, and then my left safety tether, red, there it is. I see it, yeah. Red hook is on my left E-ring extender, closed and locked. Thank you.
Okay, I see that as a safe config. If the ground wants to double check something, they can give us a call. I'm going to progress. So when the crew lock PDT is approximately 0, you both can expect an alert tone.
Copy.
And when we get to a half PSI on the PCS here, I'll call the ground to confirm that they agree that we've gotten to less than half PSI, and then we'll give you the next steps.
Good luck.
Ground copies and concurs, and that's a good tether config.
Hi, Jenny, and hi, TV18.
The pressure inside the crew lock across the hatch from where you're looking right now, where Mark Vandehei is, the two spacewalkers are jammed inside the crew lock, side by side, standing by for the crew lock to go down to vacuum, at which point they'll be allowed to open the hatch. First, the outer thermal cover will pop open. Following that, the hatch will be open. The crew members will place their suits on internal battery power to mark the official start of today's spacewalk. The new ISS rollout solar arrays that are in the process of being installed on the station today, the second of 6 such arrays, are the precursors to a derivative of those that will be used for the Gateway program. The Gateway program developing an outpost that will orbit the moon to provide support for the long-term human return to the lunar surface, as well as a staging point for deep space exploration. You can see the difference in the current ISS, the so-called legacy or heritage ISS solar array wings for the 8 power channels on the International Space